Last time we were talking about Sasha. He was one of the superstar DJs he had the first cover picture on Mixmag magazine. And now, today, we're going to be talking about Carl Cox, which might most likely overshadow Sasha. Only because Carl Cox has been at the music scene since the 80s, as well as Sasha, but in regards to popularity, Carl Cox is probably more popular than Sasha. And of course, there's people that will debate about that for forever on the internet. But of course, I personally, from what my own experience is, I heard about Carl Cox first before I heard about Sasha. So there you have it. Carl Cox has been popular since I started listening to dance music back in '93. One of the CDs that really got my attention about Carl Cox was Hit the Decks, Volume 1, which is Techno DJs Take Control. It's basically, it was put out by Moonshine Music in 1993. It's 6 different mega mixes, one which is Carl Cox. The other mega mixes on that CD are, I think, Martin Smith, SL2, Slip Matte in Lime, Chrome in Time is another one. So basically, that's the CD that I actually heard about him, and it was one of my favorite CDs from the time that I bought it. It was amazing. His popularity is sky high because he was one of the originators of the rave scene in the UK during the acid house scene when it broke into the dance culture of UK back in 87, 88. I read that, like Paul Oakenfold went to Ibiza and back in like 1987, and when he came back to UK, he wanted to bring the Ibiza sound with him. Carl Cox, of course, he's been in Ibiza before, like Paul Oakenfold, but Paul Oakenfold is just another amazing pioneering person in the dance culture. But today we're going to be talking about Carl Cox. As far as where he was born in Manchester, and I've been reading about him a lot online, and some people say that he was born in Brighton, some say Manchester, others say, believe it or not, some people think that Carl Cox is from Detroit, which is wrong. He might have taken parts of the Detroit sound and put it towards house and techno music and introduced it to the UK in that form, although he is not from Detroit. Let's make that clear. From what I've been coming across on the internet, the most likelihood, the story that I believe the most is that he's from Manchester. He might have also he's moved many times and has many houses in the UK and outside of the UK. So he's lived in Brighton, which is south of London. Manchester is a little bit more up north. So anyways, and these days he's over 60 years old, and he put out a brand new album, Electronic Generations in 2022. he's put out a couple of albums prior to this, and he's mainly very popular with his DJ sets, and ranking number one in many magazines, in DJ Magazine, Mix Mag Magazine, um, etc., etc. So Carl Cox is very loved and very deserving of his recognition. He is a pioneer, at the very top, creme de la creme. I have absolute the utmost respect for this guy. He has done more for the electronic scene, electronic dance scene, more than anyone that I know. So he these days he has a home in Australia, and I believe in Queensland, and I read somewhere that he has a house in Melbourne, but I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But and he said that the DJ sets that he's had, the best DJ sets that he's ever created or experienced, from his own experience, his own DJ sets were created in Australia. And of course, Australia is essentially a paradise. You know, it's a beautiful place, and I agree with him that, you know, his inspiration for putting out some great DJ mixes could only be made in Australia. Of course, the UK as well. One of the DJ mixes that he put out for Mix Mag magazine. It's a famous Mix Mag Live DJ sets. He's the first one, Carl Cox on the first side, and then Dave Seaman is the second mix. There's always like two mixes on the Mix Mag Live mixes, and he was the one that started it off back in 1991. But which is a great mix, but I've heard many mixes from him, and including the one where he owned his own nightclub, and that's another great mix. It's also put out by Moonshine Music. You should check that out. But today we're going to be talking about his 2022 album, Electronic Generations. And let's get into it right now. All right, so Carl Cox's new album, Electronic Generations. Carl Cox, when it comes to his own music, has this amazing, like, hard beat, just pumping all the time, and it's an essential techno beat that really gets you going. He's capable of manipulating the beats, in taking the bass away and bringing it back in full effect. So, you know, it makes a big difference when you hear the song, and his capability of manipulating the acid-tinged 303 sounds to full effect, to very percussive, very repetitive fashion, which makes you want to just dance your butt off, is what I'm thinking. So in regards to his new album, I have to admit that the first time I heard it, I was kind of thinking to myself that his prior albums, prior to this one, are much better. And after listening to it for more than 3 times, probably over 10 times now, But I think it's grown on me essentially. Some of the songs that I liked from the very beginning were like "Toys Out of the Prom," I believe. Let's see, what is it? Yeah, "Toys Out of the Prom," which is British saying "toys out of the baby carriage," essentially. Um, and let's see, the other songs I like really is "Bring It Back." "Bring It Back" is a really good song, and also "See the Sun Rising" at the very end is very good too. The first two tracks are good as well. Um, "Electronic Generations" and uh, "Our Time Will Come" is really good as well, in my opinion. Those are some of the great tracks. Although I have to admit that if you put it on and listen to it from beginning to end, you're just gonna love the flow of the songs. I think the flow of the songs on the album are it plays out as really well as an album, right? Not as individual songs. Um, so as far as the rating goes on this album, I think that it's. I would probably give it like a 8 out of 10, considering his past output. In many ways, he's ready to retire and not do any more music or DJing. So it's 2024 right now, and there's been talk that he's trying to lay back more, and this is his first album like in 12 years. So but his albums that came prior were in essence a little bit better in that they had more energy, right? I feel like this album is fine tuned to the maximum. Like there's no rough edges. There's no like spontaneity. I can't say that word. Spontaneity. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I feel like the albums that came prior to this one are a little bit more better because they have more energy and they're more spontaneous. Okay. And also I noticed that there's not a lot of singing in this album. A lot of the songs are instrumental, which is okay, and I like it myself. But I sometimes like some lyrics as well. Of course, techno music is usually instrumental, and in regards to Carl Cox, he has had some songs that have lyrics in them, but this album truly is stripped of many lyrics. They're just, you can't find them on this album, which doesn't necessarily make the album less of an album, but it would have been a nice addition to have some lyrics on some songs. But Carl Cox, like I said, he's very respected. He's one of the number one DJs by critics and the public. They love him very much, and I love him very much too. He's amazing when it comes to DJ mixes, and he can put out some really good music. of his own. And I would definitely at least listen to this album once from beginning to end, because you'll be surprised to find some real gems on this album. The speed trials on acid, which are essentially remixes of multiple mixes with other popular electronic producers, for instance, Fatboy Slim, Norman Cook. I think that's when you put remixes on the album, it kind of takes away from the album, which at first I felt that's the case, and I might not feel that way so much as of now, but in the beginning, I thought that putting the remixes at so many of the speed trials on acid, that it was just too much. So yeah, although there are two remixes at the very end of the album, which are very good, and you should hear those. But the remixes of the, like I said, speed trials on acid are too much, and I don't like it when they glorify drug use. Although I know it's essentially not about drug use, but it's more of like the Roland 303 acid noise, the squelching noise of the Roland 303, right? But of course, there's undertones there which you could relate to drugs as well. But I personally like the music, but I don't touch the drugs. That's no way, Jose. So anyway, I'm into this music because of the music, the way it makes me feel, not because of drugs. And that's just even rock and roll. They say sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? Well, there's this new generation that loves electronic music, and of course, drugs are related or attached to the music, which is unfortunate in my point of view, because I feel like the music itself is enough to get you to a nirvana state of pure trance or pure love and dancing, and drugs are not needed whatsoever. But anyway, so that's my little spiel on that. But so if you like this review, let me know. Give me a thumbs up, and give me a comment what you think about the review, and please subscribe to the channel so we can keep this going. The more subscribers I get, the more I feel like people are wanting to hear me talk more about albums that I hear and albums that I recommend. This is an album which I'd truly recommend if you've never heard Carl Cox before, which is pretty unbelievable, because if you're into electronic music, one of the first personas that you will come across is Carl Cox, and unfortunately he's retiring, so he might not be in the limelight as much as he was prior, but he is still a major proponent and a major music maker and DJ within the dance culture. So thanks for listening. I hope you subscribe, like, and comment, and I'll see you in the next review. Bye-bye.